I am Regie Cabico, and welcome to Poetry Rocks the District. It gives me a great pleasure to have the incredible Kim B. Miller. Kim B. Miller's poetry is inspirational. Her words are bold, and she is unapologetically blunt. Yes. Kim is an award-winning spoken word poet who has performed nationally, in person, and internationally through the power of the virtual technology. Yes. Kim is a 2019 Southern Fried Haiku Champion. Kim has competed in the Haiku Deathmatch and won in 2019. Her poems have been published in African Voices magazine, a Portuguese haiku anthology, an interfaith anthology, Poetry X, Hunger anthology, and several online. Her latest book is called My Poetry is the Beauty You Overlook. So Kim B. Miller, thank you so much. I'm really happy that you are here. And first of all, your work is so inspirational to read it and also to hear you perform it. And I've known you through Day 8, but I've also read your poems in the city paper when they were looking at voices of poets in the pandemic, and you just say it the way that it is. Like you don't even have to add a whole lot. You just tell the truth, and that's what I get from your poems. Yeah. And tell me how that happens.
So for me, I don't know the origins. I'm a religious person, so if I had to guess, I say Jesus gave me this gift and I use it. And don't worry, I'm not one of those Christians. Disclaimer. But I think it's a gift, and I think if you use your gift to point people in the right direction, but you can't point people in the right direction if you're not giving them truth. And people eat truth in different portions. So my job as a poet is to give it to you in this way.
So does that mean that you were a creative child? Were you drawing, singing, like telling stories, writing stories?
I was always a dancer. I love dancing. I love creative. My mom was really creative, so we'd make things and things of that nature. So yeah, I've loved creating things.
It's funny that you say that dance is one of your art forms because your words are very physical.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see dancers who write poems, it's really about the verb, and there's a lot of muscle to it. Dancers really write with impact, with a blow.
Mm-hmm.
They slice the air, they glide, it twirls. So I would say that your work has that quality. High school, were you that quiet child in the back with a journal? Or tell me a little bit of that, and if any of your poetry was nurtured.
In high school, I wasn't really into poetry. When I was younger than high school, I was a horrible speller. Let's start there. When I say horrible, I mean F student. F. Spelling was not my thing. So if you'd told me that kid was going to turn into a poet, I, of course, would have laughed at you. But high school, I started getting more into the love letter, poemish sort of thing. But to call myself or claim the title poet, never. That was never even a thought in high school. In high school, I was on, it's not cheerleading. They called it a kick line. So similar, it's not like, but I have to like it to something. So similar to the Rockettes, but nothing like the Rockettes. So something like that. Back to dance again. So as far as nurturing and writing, I've always kind of done a little bit of it, but to go into and call it and then claim the title, I'm a spoken word poet, no, definitely not in high school. No, and I was not ever quiet. Well, I was quieter. I was never quiet.
Wow, so the spoken word Powers came much later, and I can relate to that. Tell me how that happened.
So I'm a New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, spent most of my life in Long Island. Woohoo. So I said, I'm going to Harlem. It was a fantastic bookstore that unfortunately is no longer open, called Human, like Hugh. I said, well, they're having an open mic. Let me go. You know how New Yorkers are. They'll tell you to, wow, that pen is deep, or go sit down. So, so I went, and I'm like, oh, so I went, and part of it, the bookstore, like where you're performing, there's people actually shopping still, like in this area. So I'm up performing, and this lady talked to me a whole time. She was really hysterical. She's like, "You tell us so. You say that." So that was at least bit distracting. And for us poets, well, I'm not speak for all of us, but most poets enjoy the interaction. We don't necessarily love that peace and quiet, that library feel. No, yell back, snap, clap, shake your head, tap your foot, something that you're hearing us, you feel us. So the fact that she talked to me the entire poem, I'm like, oh, must be pretty good, because sis stayed and she talked to me. And then the host, it was a critiquing type open mic, so it wasn't just the host got up and said some things. It was really good. Nobody said anything bad. Everybody loved what I said. I have that poem I did someplace. It wasn't, I look back now and say, oh, okay, what you think? Okay, but anyway, at the time it was fine. There was nothing wrong with the poem. And when I say I went home and I stopped immediately. I stopped writing, and I stopped performing poetry in its entirety. And I did not pick it up again until I moved to Virginia several years later. And then I just heard the Lord say, it's time. I'm like, time for what? Poetry. Poetry? What? Really? I'm like, okay. So I went to her event. And of course, because I can't be normal, I go, my first event is for a slam. Anyway, long story short, I ended up making the slam. I was the only woman in that slam. I did not win the slam, but it was quite an adventure.
Which slam venue, and who was the slam master?
It was is a venue in Virginia called Spirits and Lyrics. And they used to have a yearly slam. They stopped years back. And Jeff Johnson is the curator of that space. It's in Manassas, and I can't remember what the name of the slam was. But I remember Breeze the poet.
Wow.
And he's fire. He's still fire. And I was just happy to be in the company of all those fantastic male poets. It was fantastic.
Were you the only woman?
I was the only woman.
And that's what it is all the time. Not all the time. It's either all women or you're the only one woman, and then it's all of the guys.
Right.
And in some ways, you have to be like that Scarlett Johansson figure.
Yeah.
I'm the only woman, and like I'm the only woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you got to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that sets you up well, and then sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So, in this is the tell-all version here. How was that experience? Was it a positive experience? Because
fantastic. It really was. I've gone back to SNL for a number of years. When they have the open mic, which they have at Girani's now, they have an area, they call it the comfort zone. They want everybody to feel comfortable. There's no shaming. There's no belittling. They've always made me feel comfortable and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Because the first few times I went back, of course, and performed, they're like, you're going to go places. I'm like, go places? What are you talking about? I'm just doing poetry. I'm just like, no, you're not. So their environment and the way they treat people there has always been beautiful and welcoming. And when you find those venues, because I know, unfortunately, some of you poets have been to places that have not been poet friendly, which sounds ridiculous, but it is what it is. We're going to talk truth. When you find those places that are beautiful, go and support the people who are having these venues.
I feel like your career has really bloomed and blossomed over the last 3 years. And I would just say, and like reading your bio, the pandemic has been helpful.
Yes.
In that it's given you a virtual outreach.
Yes.
And doing it and getting gigs all over the world at all hours of the day that you wouldn't think would have happened. So let's talk about that for a moment. When you slam, you are putting yourself into the dirt.
Yes.
You are being raw,
Yes.
like it's not glamorous.
Woo,
You're
tell it.
performing you're performing with a cappuccino machine in the background. You are, getting heckled. You
Yes.
are doing this. You're scored unfairly.
Yes.
And it is almost like, why are we even doing this?
Yes.
Why am I doing this to win like what, $20? Like,
Right.
what is it that, why am I speaking in this mic? Why am I even with these people? Why am I letting people who don't even know anything about poetry score me? I so let's just talk about that, and then
Mhm.
also we don't know what it's going to add up to, because when you're doing that, it's like, okay, I'm open to whatever happens,
Yes.
but if somebody would told you, well, you're going to be, poet laureate, first African American poet laureate of Prince William County, in Virginia, like, I don't know that you would have.
I would have laughed. I'm
Yeah.
honest. I just would have laughed. Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I did, because what a lot of people don't know is this is not my first year. And most poet laureates. So I'll tell you this secret about poet laureates. And I know this from several of the poet laureates that I've spoken to. Very few get it the first year that they apply for it. This was not my first year applying. So I was not going to apply for this one. I just was not. I was like, nope, not doing it. Then at the last minute, I just had that voice in my head that said, go ahead and do it. And I'm like, okay, it's this Jesus talking to me. I don't want to ignore something, the Lord is telling me, like I may have done in the past. I won't say I've done it. Anyway, so I put the application in, and then here I am. So you just never, I wasn't going to go to Southern Fried that year either. That was my first year going. So I like to say, you just never know. If you don't put yourself out there, you'll just never know what you can accomplish.
Terrific. I would like to talk about this powerful poem, Your Pen,
Mm-hmm.
which, tell me the inspiration of this poem.
There was a couple of things behind my pen. One was trying to convey, I always try to convey a message without telling people what the message is so they can get their own message. I know I can't be. Why are poets so highbrow? Can you just, can you just say what you said? I try to make a point without saying what the point is, because if you say what the point is, then you lose people who make their own point out of your poems, and they hear something different that you weren't interpreting, and then they come back and they're like, I heard this from your poem, and you're like, well, that's absolutely gorgeous. That's not what I was thinking about when I wrote it. And you don't take back food you fed somebody. That's a big thing for me. You do not take back something that someone has interpreted
Mm-hmm.
by your words, and you go, oh, that's not what it's about. Let me tell you what it's about. And I've seen people do this, and I'm like, oh no, don't do it. Don't do. Oh, and then you see people walk away dejected because now the beauty that they found in your poem, the beauty that they found in your words, what they connected with you about, what they felt you were talking to them about, the magic, unmagic that you just created, you just killed. You just killed. So I'm a believer in writing the message so that hopefully it feeds different people differently, and somebody can get out of it whatever they were supposed to get out of it. Because sometimes it's going to be different things to different people.
Terrific. Kim, would you do the honors of reading?
I was invisible. At least I thought I was. But apparently you can see me. I'm like a convenience store. You must have driven past me, but you didn't stop because I'm not convenient. I searched for you. So much so, I learned to play hide and seek with my depression. There are no hiding spots left. So I sit here in my sadness. I wonder about you, a potential relationship. I was desperate to find you, but you play hide and seek better than me. Eventually, I stopped playing life and started living one. Now here you come, out of the shadows. You expect this letter to do what? Strengthen a relationship when our common blood was too thin? If you had my address to ask me to address you, you could have addressed me. Let silence dress you. I wonder who will attend your funeral since you've always been a ghost. I searched for you for years. I buried you in my soul. I won't attend a second funeral. The first one was too big. Why are you so worried about dressing up death when you never cared about life?
I love that poem.
Thank you.
So, with that poem, um, the line, what is it, dressed in silence?
Mm-hmm. Let silence dress you.
Let silence dress you. Um, can I ask what inspired the poem?
Absolutely. It was a prompt about someone who was looking for, I think it was their grandfather, and they never found them. And then they got a letter from them saying, hey, can you come dress me for my funeral? I'm like, well, if you had the address, the first thing that hit me was the play on words on address. If you had the address to ask me to come address, you could have addressed me.
Can you say that one more time? It was inspired by someone
Who was
who,
searching for someone in their family, and they never found them. And then after they died, they got a letter from that person saying, well, at my funeral, please come and dress me, like find out what is the words for that? Pick an outfit for me to wear and make sure my tie matches my suit. And, there's a whole ritual sometimes for people to do that. So then the person got this letter saying, for whoever, let's say grandfather, your grandfather left you this letter saying, asking you, can you come dress him for his funeral? And I'm like, so then you knew where the person lived. What are you doing?
wow, I just got inspired with a poem
Okay.
by just what you said. There's been a few poems that address um, death,
Mm-hmm.
right? About my funeral. I know Gail Danley has a slam poem, I Want a Funeral Like Nixon's, or talking about, well, what is our death
Yes.
like? And I think with this poem that you have read, I think what I would like our audiences, our poets who are watching to really think about their funeral, the death, what are you searching for, and what does that look like? Um, so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this poem that's in response to what you just read, and
Okay.
this is just off the fly about my death.
Okay.
I'll see it like a blade of green from last summer's unchucked pot. Before the fuchsia lilies pop its fluorescent burst in May, or I'll hear it coming like an engine rattle from a Greyhound bus in November. It may linger in circles, a separated goat from its herd, bleating for help. Let me be asleep, nimble, mind intact, sheets clean like the end of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, after a life of catapulting through air, neither falling or flying, my petals landing where they may. I'll somersault with the shadows of my room, let my branches bend, fruit rolling like a fist, releasing the remote control after watching a familiar rerun.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Uh,
Wow.
Thank you. Kim, your poem is beautiful. So I feel like your poem and my poem, we made a bouquet
Yes,
together. Um, Kim B. Miller, I can't wait to see what else you will be working on. Can I briefly ask, usually we just end with the exercise, but I just want to know what you're working on and what's inspiring you.
definitely working on some things with kids. I love working with kids and I love doing haikus and things for them. And I recently worked with some kids and I did one on Fortnite and one on Marvel. And their faces were like, I'm like, yes, you can write a haiku on anything as long as you. And they were like, really? You know, of course, I didn't make it as simple. I did, for instance, for the Marvel one, I said, I marvel at the storm outside. It's mad neat, though. Too much ice. Man. And I'm like, what's the haiku about? They're like, well, the weather outside is really bad. I'm like, okay, what else? They're like, the weather outside is bad. I'm like, what else? Oh, wait. Like, so Summer Catch Marvel and Storm, who controls the weather. Most of them don't get the Magneto, and of course, Iceman. So,
Yes. Kim B. Miller, thank you so much. And stay tuned for our next episode of Poetry Rocks the District. Thank you.
thank you.